May the 19th, 1983, Diane Downs arrived in an emergency room entrance in a blood-soaked car with her three children, Cheryl, Christy, and Danny. The children had been shot at a close range. Diane had a non-life-threatening gunshot in her forearm. In this very chaotic scene, the hospital's employees determined that Cheryl was already deceased and that Christy and Danny were clinging to life. Diane was born Elizabeth Diane Fredrickson on August 7, 1955, in Phoenix, Arizona, to Wesley Lyndon and Willadine Fredrickson. Her family had very conservative values, and Diane often rebelled against those family values. Diane would rebel by wearing trendy and fashionable clothing and often flirt with the young boys during her high school days. Diane attended Moon Valley High School. This is where she dated older boys and she dressed like a grown woman. It is at this high school that she met her first love, Steve Downs. The two were madly in love and would graduate together, but had to part briefly as Steve joined the Navy and Diane went to Pacific Coast Baptist Bible College in California. Unfortunately, Diane would be expelled due to, let's just say, friendly behavior with some of her male colleagues. Steve and Diane would reunite in Arizona, and the two would get married in November the 13th, 1973. Diane quickly became pregnant in 1974 to Christy, 1976 to Cheryl, and in 1979 with Daniel. By this time, the couple had many arguments regarding Diane's infidelity, and Steve discovered that his wife had an affair, and Daniel was a product of this affair with her colleague. Steve to separate from Diane. With no income, Diane tried to be a surrogate, but she failed two qualifying mental exams. They reported that she was very intelligent but also psychotic. Now, toward the year of 1982, she did get an offer to become a surrogate and gave birth to a daughter on May the 8th, 1982. Diane was said to be very neglectful of her children. She would often leave them alone with her oldest, Christy, or with her parents, or with Steve. In 1981, Diane obtained a job at the U.S. Post Office. This is where she met Robert. It was said that Robert and Diane had a passionate affair. However, due to her constant nagging and due to her having children, Nick ended the affair and Diane moved back to Oregon. However, some would say that she grew obsessed with Nick. Diane said after visiting a friend, after it had grown dark, her and the three children were on their way back. The kids had fallen asleep in the vehicle. She decided to take a back road. She did it often, she said. She remembers Hungry Like a Wolf was playing on the tape player. She noticed a bushy-haired man standing in the road, waving her down. She stopped and turned the vehicle off. She asked what was the problem. Diane stated he said he wanted her car.
For us, we simply wanted to nail down her statements, and she was more than happy to do that.
Sitting in the car is Elizabeth Diane Downs.
She can be seen sitting in the car, and she's kind of primping, making sure that her hair looked the way she wanted it.
Diane Downs is trying to show the investigators exactly what happens.
I'm throwing the keys, okay? I'm throwing the keys.
So they can understand and get the forensics right.
I go like that. I got in the car, jumped in, put the keys in. I just hit my cast. Started the car and left. The car door shut itself. God.
She was giddy, she laughed, she cracked jokes. I mean, she's reenacting the gruesome shootings of her 3 children. She doesn't seem at all upset.
This is worse than, okay.
She'd hit her cast, then made the statement, "This is worse than," and she caught herself. So we speculated, of course, what she would have said to finish that sentence, and we always thought, this is worse than when I shot myself.
I can guarantee you that
Upon arrival, suspicions began to grow regarding Diane's behavior. She seemed very calm for someone who had lost a child. She also concealed the fact that she owned a .22 caliber handgun. She also provided the news media with several interviews. The police also obtained Diane's diary, and that provided motive for her to unalive her children. She wanted to get rid of them to be with Nick. At trial, Diane was pregnant, but the baby was taken by the state and adopted. Due to his injuries, Diane Downs was paralyzed from the waist down. After months of physical and mental therapy, Christy Downs was able to testify against her mother during the trial. Diane was convicted and received life in prison and an additional 50 years. July the 11th, 1987, Diane escaped the women's prison. She was found 10 days later within a mile of the prison. She was living with another inmate's husband. She received an additional 5-year sentence, was transferred to another facility, and Diane has been up for parole and denied in 2008 and 2010. Out of the darkness did come some light. Her children, Christy and Danny, were adopted by the prosecutor Fred Hugie and his wife.